Welcome back. Now let's talk about climate change. About 40,000 delegates from over 190 countries will be in Paris to talk about the climate change starting on Monday. And France is chairing and hosting this 21st conference of the parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. We have guests in the studio to tell us all about this. And I'll start with the environmentalist, Mr. Desmond Majekodunmi. Thank you so much for being here this morning. We also have Oluwatosin Kolawole, who is the President, Climate Aid. Thank you for being here. And of course, we have the lead climate change negotiator, Mr. Lekon Fadina. Thank you for being here this morning. Now, let me start with you. Nigeria is going to be represented at this climate change conference in Paris. What is it that we are going to be doing there?
Well, I think without wasting more time, we need to look at the historical perspective. How do we get to where we are? And the simple answer is that over the years, there have been a clamor for us to address the challenges of environment, climate change, and sustainable development. And of course, there have been a series of meetings, and as you rightly mentioned, the Paris one is going to be the 21st of those meetings, where you have countries that have signed into what you call the United Nations Framework on Climate Change, or what you call Conference of Parties. And in this Conference of Parties, there are two types. There's what you call Annex 1 countries, which are developed countries, and then you have Annex 2, which is developing countries. Nigeria happens to, and of course, this grouping, you also have groupings. What you have, the African group, the G77 and China, less developed countries, and a host of others. Nigeria belongs to African group, and also in collaboration with G77 and China, we work together. And as I did mention to you, there have been a series of meetings. You have meeting in Peru, meeting in Copenhagen, and a host of others. But without wasting more time, two key issues are coming up. The first issue is that the world is very concerned on the effect of what you call greenhouse gas, which is carbon dioxide. And the idea is that it's worrying because climate change is real. Climate change affects our sustainable life, it affects our agriculture, it affects our living. A very simple example, we now have rain in November. We now have a situation where cow rearers, are now in your home or in your street, and you start to ask yourself, how did you get it? So the idea is that we need to address climate change, which has been described as the most dangerous challenge of this century. And the idea is that countries should strive towards getting 2 degrees Celsius, should strive towards it, and a number of factors have come in, which again, possibly in the course of this discussion, we might need to look at. The other side of it is that in the process of addressing the climate change issue, we have spoken about the issue of greenhouse gas. What does that mean? All it means is that we need to reduce the type of greenhouse gases we have in our environment. And that means there is now the road towards what we call the low carbon economy. And that is where the challenge is. And that road to low carbon means that there is a paradigm shift in development. Don't forget that this year alone, there are 3 major international meetings apart from others. You had the one on financing development. We have the Sustainable Development Goals. And you are having what I called to crown it all, the Climate Change Conference, where the world head of states are going to sign an agreement for a commitment. But before that agreement, there was an understanding that each country should provide its intended determined contributions. And of course, a number of countries have already done that. So in summary, the idea of COP21 is to lead us towards how we can improve human life, how we can reduce the challenges of climate change, and how we can make the world better than we found it.
Okay, Mr. Majakodume, he said that we have found ourselves having rain in November. What are some of those other climate change issues that Nigeria is dealing with or needs to deal with?
Well, if I can show the front page of one of the British newspapers, where it says 2015, hottest year ever. Yeah, here it is again. Yes, this is now this paper came out in August, and interestingly, 2014 had been the hottest year that humanity has ever known. When Uncle is saying that it is one of the gravest issues facing humanity, he has hit the nail hard on the head, because if in August they're able to say 2015 is the hottest year, you can see how hot this year is. And the reality is that this global warming aggravates changes of climate, which cause all types of catastrophic reactions. Rain when it's not supposed to rain, aridity, unprecedented. The way the desert in Nigeria is moving in now, as I said, it's driving people who are happy to stay in that area all the way to the south, just in search of their green pastures. Not to mention aggravated rainfall, where you can get 3 weeks rain falling in one day. This is what causes gully erosion. You can't even call what we have in those places gullies anymore. They're caverns. They're just, you know, it's untenable. But the most worrisome one is the ocean rise, because Lagos and most of the coast of Nigeria and the rest of West Africa is very, very low lying. And we're seeing, okay, we're having refugee problems in Europe now, which are terrible problems. There's no doubt about it. But those things are very small in comparison to the kind of refugee problems we could have if we don't get a handle on this climate change issue. Oh, and just interestingly, the refugee problems that they're having in Europe, refugees coming from Syria, it's been certified by several world leaders that one of the driving causes of that instability there was an aberration in the climate. In Syria, about 15 years ago, for 5 years, they had the worst droughts. They had a 5-year drought, which totally destabilized the farming communities, totally destabilized the country, and drove millions of people into the urban areas. And this is the cannon fodder for the type of political unrest that you're having there now. So even the Syrian crisis, one of the major drivers was climate change. One of the major drivers of even our own militancy here, the Boko Haram crisis, is climate change. When a man is driven from his homeland, driven from his pasture, you know they say a hungry man is what? A hungry man is an angry man. What if a man that has no food, has no water? He becomes a madman, and he becomes susceptible to all types of crazy ideologies. This is what's going on.
But Desmond, yes, 190 countries, 40,000 delegates are going to gather. They're going to be looking at how to manage the environment in the face of climate change, right? But these are discussions that have been. This is the 21st gathering. So there's, I mean, 1 to 20. How do you think the decisions of the last set of gatherings have been implemented? How far would you say the decisions taken there have been?
I'm glad you asked that question. Far too few. Far too few good decisions have not. They've been talk shops. They've talked ever since the Kyoto Protocol, which established at least some sort of control system. It's just been talking because of the vested interest. But now...
Vested interest of individuals or nations?
Both, individual nations, but particularly corporate entities who have so much at stake. And that's what's been driving a lot of this greed. Greed.
Sorry, can I come in
here?
You see, a lot of decisions have been taken, and there are actions. Having said that, the recent report of the
Governmental panel
IPCC, Inter-Parliamentary Panel
on climate change,
clearly indicated that most of the challenges that we have in climate change happens to be human-induced. In discipline, we call all these challenges on our own.